After 20 years away, Billionaire discovered an amazing bond between his daughter and the maid. Jake Bennett stepped into his sprawling mansion after 20 years, the air thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, a welcome reminder of home. But the silence that enveloped him felt like an ominous cloud, a stark contrast to the laughter that had once filled these walls. He scanned the opulent living room adorned with the spoils of success, yet the echoes felt haunting. This place, a monument to ambition, now magnified his isolation. His heart weighed heavy with guilt as he contemplated his estranged relationship with Emily, his college-age daughter, who viewed his fortune as a burden rather than a gift. He caught sight of Emily through the large sunlit window. She sat on the sofa, her laughter mingling with Maria's, the longtime maid whose resilience radiated warmth. From behind the marble pillar, Jake watched their connection overflow with intimacy, something he'd longed for but felt unworthy to disrupt. For a moment, an unsettling envy surged through him. Where had he gone wrong? The million-dollar deals, the relentless pursuit of profit, had brought him wealth, but left him with a chasm between him and his own flesh and blood. They shared jokes and whispers, as if he weren't there, and the tension within him simmered. As the days rolled on, Jake's internal turmoil escalated. He had sacrificed the essence of family for the empire he'd built. But here, watching the bond between Emily and Maria take shape, he was confronted with something deeper than loss, social inequality and the biases he had carried. Maria, a diligent worker from a humble background, offered comfort and companionship to Emily, while Jake felt like an intruder in both their lives. He wanted to join them, yet hesitated. Did wealth isolate him, or was it his own choices? What did it say about his values? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Tensions mounted when an unforeseen business dispute threatened not only Emily's future plans, but also jeopardized Maria's job. The thought of losing the connection that somehow brought his daughter happiness left Jake paralyzed. Should he protect his empire, built on cutthroat business practices, or intervene and fight against the very system he'd perpetuated? Each decision he faced reverberated within him, the weight pressing heavier on his shoulders. Memories of missed birthdays and forgotten moments surged forward, tearing at his conscience. Emily confronted him one afternoon, laying bare the harsh reality of his choices. "You keep saying you did this for us, Dad, but all I see is how you lost us," she said. Her words pierced through Jake, igniting an internal battle that spiraled into anguish. Deep down, he recognized he had surrendered his values for unchecked ambition. But altering course now felt like admitting defeat, abandoning everything he had fought for. As sweat beaded on his brow, the stakes couldn't be clearer. And then came Maria's revelation, a shared story of sacrifice that shattered Jake's emotionally fortified walls. Her past resonated far too closely with his own struggles, amplifying the tug of war raging within. Facing the brutal reality, he understood the gravity of his choices. At that critical juncture, Jake found himself standing at the intersection of family loyalty and moral obligation. Would he uphold the corruption that had brought him success, or protect the fragile bonds that could guide him toward redemption? As existential dread gripped his heart, it became evident that the path forward was fraught with uncertainty, weighing heavily on every heartbeat. The relentless ticking of the wall clock echoed in the silent halls, a constant reminder that time was slipping away. A heavy fog of uncertainty loomed over Jake as he shuffled through his thoughts during the sleepless nights that followed Maria's revelation. He knew he had to act, but each potential course of action confronted him with an obstacle that felt insurmountable. Could he dismantle the empire built on ideals he no longer believed in? The fear of vulnerability gripped him tightly. Jake found himself in his office the next morning, staring out the window towards the sprawling estate, devoid of joy. The lush gardens seemed mocking in their beauty, thriving amid his inner chaos. He had achieved the pinnacle of success, yet here he sat with a gnawing sensation that something essential was missing, a connection he had once taken for granted. He was beginning to see the roots of his discontent. His drive for success fueled a widening chasm between him and his loved ones. He thought of Emily's face as she had explained her aspirations, her hopes dimming under the weight of his ambitions. If he continued on this path, she would grow resentful, the same resentment he had harbored towards his own father. It was a cycle he now felt determined to break. It struck him that perhaps it wasn't the wealth that had driven a wedge between them, but rather the values that came with it. He examined the very foundation of his success: cutthroat, uncompromising, ruthless. An idea began to take root within his mind. What if he could use his resources to create something meaningful, something that benefited others instead of solely himself? He pictured a community project, one that focused on empowerment and education for those who had sacrificed their dreams. But the fear of potential backlash was paralyzing. What if others viewed it as an attempt at redemption? Determined to forge a new path, Jake reached for his laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard as he sought inspiration. As he began drafting a proposal for a philanthropic venture, the words flowed like a dam breaking. With each sentence, he felt a part of himself re-emerging, an essence submerged in years of negligence. But what could he genuinely offer? Would it be enough to console the gaping void left in his relationships? Lost in contemplation, Jake didn't notice his daughter entering the office. Emily's presence felt electric, charged with the unspoken words hanging between them. "Dad," she said softly, startling him from his reverie. Her voice was filled with tentative hope. Jake turned to face her, fully aware of the tension in the air. "Emily, Are you really going to change?" she challenged him, eyes wide with a mixture of skepticism and yearning. "Do you want me to change?" he answered, feeling a pulse of fear at the possibility of rejection. An uneasy silence settled over them, each contemplating their next move. The connection they so desperately needed felt precarious, balanced on the edge of honesty and vulnerability. "Because if you're ready to fight for us, for something real, I'm willing to listen," she said, determination shining through the cracks of uncertainty. Jake's heart raced at her words. Could it be possible? Could this pivot be the anchor that turned their family ship around? Yet as his optimism peaked, another thought crashed against it. What had he truly learned about sacrifice and responsibility? The stakes had never been higher, and the path forward grew increasingly complex. Emily stepped closer, sensing the emotional distance lingering in the air. "We can't keep going like this." She was right. The cliff of change loomed in front of him, but would he take the leap? Could he truly let go of everything he had fought for, embracing a new identity, a new purpose? The room felt charged with possibility, pushing him to confront the real task ahead. The moment of truth approached, one that could redefine not just his future, but that of his family. As they exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passed between them. No more hiding. The next step required a confrontation with everything he had built. And as Jake felt the stirrings of a possible transformation, he wondered if he could become the man he truly wanted to be. Not just for himself, but for Emily as well. Would he muster the courage to face those haunting shadows of his past? The time had come to face himself. Jake felt the weight of Emily's gaze pierce through the hesitant veil he had wrapped around himself. Her challenge echoed in him, entwining with the remnants of his moral conflict. Could he truly be the father and man he strove to become? The air thickened with anticipation as he resolved, in that moment, to lay bare his intentions. "Emily, I've been thinking. I want to create something real, not just for me, but for people who need it. I want to give back." Her expression shifted, disbelief mingling with curiosity. "What do you mean, give back? You've never thought like this before." "Maybe I've been blind, caught up in my own desires," he replied, articulating the thoughts that had occupied him for too long. No more projects focused solely on profit. The vulnerability in his voice surprised even himself. "I'm listening," she urged, her expression earnest, prompting him to delve deeper. Jake took a breath, strategizing how to convey the vision sprouting in his mind. "Education, Emily. I want to set up a program that helps underprivileged kids develop their talents, teaching them skills, helping them find opportunities." The images of hopeful children filling classrooms ignited a flicker of passion within him. "Is that even possible?" she asked, skepticism still lacing her tone. "Possible? For the first time, I believe it might be. I have resources, influence. We can create a real impact together," he affirmed, planting the seeds of partnership that could empower and inspire them both. Emily's eyes softened, a mix of hope and concern swirling within. "But what if people think you're doing this for your own redemption? What if they don't see the effort as genuine?" Her words struck a chord. He now understood the complexity looming ahead. The road might be fraught with criticism. Yet, didn't every significant change come with its challenges? "Then we'll have to show them that I'm more than just a businessman looking to ease his conscience." Emily nodded slowly, processing the possibilities. "What if you fail? What if it all falls apart?" "If I fail, at least I will have tried. I would rather risk failure than continue living in the shadows of my past." Each word felt like a personal manifesto, manifesting, resonating deeply in the quiet of the room. "Okay," she said eventually, a tentative smile breaking across her face. "If you're really committed to this, I want to help, but we need a plan." The surge of relief and anticipation caught him off guard. Together, they began sketching out their ideas: a tutoring program, mentorship workshops, partnerships with local organizations. His vision unfolded under Emily's perceptive insights, and for the first time, they were collaborators, forging a bond in the pursuit of hope. But beneath his excitement lingered an unsettling reality. Even as new paths burgeoned, Jake wondered how his past would react. Allies might become adversaries. His business world, bullying and aggressive, wasn't just a landscape of opportunity. It was a breeding ground for jealousy. As they scribbled ideas on a notepad, the presence of Maria crept into his mind. Her words and concerns haunted him. Would she support his vision, or view it as a threat? Would their family turmoil intensify when she saw him transforming what they had built? With his heart racing and adrenaline surging, Jake felt a rush of determination flood through him. Just as he dared to carve a new identity, he'd have to confront Maria. As unsettling as it felt, perhaps it was time for transparency, to draw her into this journey. "Emily," he said suddenly, a newfound seriousness anchoring his tone, "there's one more thing I need to do. I have to talk to your mother." "What's the plan?" she asked, sensing the shift. "I have to lay everything out on the table, my intentions, my ideas. She deserves the truth as much as you do." And as they outlined their next steps, an unsettling tension brewed. He felt as though he stood at the precipice of radical change. Would this pursuit forge stronger bonds, or would it further rupture the family dynamic he so desperately sought to mend? Jake knew he had to make that call, but a deeper worry knotted in his stomach. Was he ready for the potential fallout? The uncertain future beckoned ominously, but it was a risk he would have to take. As they wrapped up their brainstorming, his focus sharpened, preparing for the challenge that lay ahead.
This confrontation with Maria fundamentally altered the direction of his life. But would the outcome empower him further or plunge him deeper into conflict? The next moment of truth awaited, and Jake couldn't delay his decision any longer. He reached for his phone, heart pounding, ready to take that next step into uncertainty. Jake's fingers hesitated above the screen, the contact from Maria glaring back at him like an ominous specter of the past. Each second stretched, amplifying the urgency creeping through him. This decision felt monumental, fraught with implications far beyond himself. Could he confront his past and still forge a path toward a brighter future? He swallowed hard, reminded that this was not just about him anymore. The thought of Emily, her hopeful glances, made him wish for that very possibility. Yet doubt seeped into his resolve. Would Maria embrace his vision or denounce him as a fraud? Finally, he pressed the call button, the ringing chimes feeling like the countdown to a pivotal moment. Each beep reverberated within him, looping around his conscience. Resolute, he steeled himself for whatever awaited on the other side. "Hello?" Maria's voice came through, a mixture of warmth and perplexity. "Hey, Maria, it's Jake." The words stumbled out, but he pushed forward. "I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet?" "Sure, what's going on?" Jake could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. He took a deep breath, bracing for the confrontation ahead. "I want to discuss what I've been working on, something new, something for kids in need." "Kids in need? What are you talking about?" Sensing her skepticism yet again, he couldn't afford to be evasive. "I want to create a program that provides education and mentorship for underprivileged children. I believe we can make a real impact, and I need your support." Silence loomed over the line, and Jake envisioned the confusion dancing in her eyes. "You've always been focused on your business, Jake. Why now?" The accusation stung, but he recognized it as valid.
"I realize that now. I've been caught in a cycle of pursuing wealth without purpose. It's time to break that cycle. I want to be a father and a man who contributes meaningfully." "Have you thought this through? People will question your motivations," she warned, her concern unmistakable. "Trust me," he urged. "I understand the risks and the doubts. I just need you to see that I'm serious about this." The tension in his voice caught her attention. "All right, let's meet. When? How about tomorrow? We can go to that cafe down the street." "Fine, but I expect a full explanation." As the call ended, Jake leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. Was he prepared for the onslaught of her questions, a possible confrontation filled with anger and hurt? Yet, within that anxiety, a current of determination surged. He was no longer the man hidden behind a veil of self-interest. The vision he shared with Emily pulsated between his thoughts, and he had to strengthen his commitment to it. Throughout the night, he prepared mentally, crafting responses to objections that might arise. What if Maria demanded proof? What if she wanted assurance that their life could withstand such upheaval? He imagined the weight of her gaze and steeled himself against it, clinging to the resolve that had ignited during his conversation with Emily. The night crept by, haunted by worries about familial connections and reputation. Each tick of the clock resonated with a countdown toward an inevitable reckoning. Would this meeting serve as a bridge to mend their fragile relationship or fracture it irreparably? As dawn's first light invaded his room, Jake felt iron resolve settle in his bones. He was ready to face whatever storm awaited him. There was no turning back now. He was determined to forge a new legacy, one filled with purpose. Arriving at the cafe, he spotted Maria already seated, her arms crossed, an air of stern expectation hanging around her. As he approached, every step felt heavier, weighed down by the enormity of his intentions. "Jake," she greeted, her voice flat, mirroring the tension that surged between them. The moment had arrived. Would she truly be receptive, or would he be forced to defend every fragment of his honesty? Shaking off the encroaching doubt, he settled into the chair opposite her,
bracing himself for the conversation that could influence the very fabric of their lives. "Thank you," he began, steadying his nerves. But before he could articulate his thoughts into words, he realized that whatever he said next would undoubtedly shape his future, for better or for worse. The air thickened with questions that loom unanswered, and Jake could feel the gravity of the decision weighing heavily on his heart. He needed clarity amidst the chaos, but was he ready for the truths that would unravel? Jake's heart raced as he faced Maria, the weight of their history flooding back like a tidal wave. The cafe buzzed around them, but the cacophony felt distant,
muted by the urgency of what lay within their fragile connection. Would this moment be the catalyst for change or a reminder of his failures? He took a breath, holding her gaze. "I've been thinking about my role in all this, about what kind of father I want to be." Maria tilted her head, searching his eyes for sincerity. "You think a new program is going to erase the past? That you can just take a deep breath and it'll be all okay?" Her skepticism struck like a pinprick to her carefully constructed resolve. He understood her doubts. They mirrored his own. "No, I don't expect it to erase anything, but I want to build something that honors where I come from, not just for me, but for Emily too. She deserves a father who cares more about the world than a balance sheet. And why should I believe you have that in you? You've spent years chasing money and status." Her tone was laced with genuine inquiry, not accusation. Her words simmered in the air, blending anger and disappointment. They were valid. He had spent too long in pursuit of material wealth, neglecting deeper connections. "I know," he replied quietly, the truth weighing heavy in his chest. "I think I'm realizing that those things don't fill the void. They never did. I'm ready to confront that." Maria leaned back in her chair, arms still crossed. A flicker of hope ignited behind her guarded facade. "So what's this program about? What's the plan? You have no experience running something like this." The challenge invigorated him. He had spent countless nights brainstorming in isolation, merging ideas with Emily's dreams. "It's about mentorship, education, and community engagement. I want to connect kids with resources they typically wouldn't have access to. I see it as a bridge." "Sounds good on paper, but you need more than a vision. What's your strategy?" Her words stung, echoing his internal fears. Yet he had prepared for this. "I've been consulting with professionals in education and social services. I'm ready to invest, not just money, but time, effort, and dedication." "Okay," she nodded slowly, still processing. "Even if you're all in, you can't just waltz in and expect to be welcomed with open arms. People will judge you. Some may even think it's a publicity stunt." Her words felt like a chill sweeping through him, a reminder of the burden he bore. "I know that, but that doesn't deter me. I've spent my life running from shadows. This time, I want to confront the light, not retreat into the dark." The tension shifted slightly. He could sense a crack in her armor. "What if you fail?" she asked, genuine concern etched onto her features. "Then I fail," he said, resolute. "But at least I'll know I tried for something that matters. Isn't that worth the risk?" Silence hung thick between them, and for a moment he saw the flickering possibility of understanding in her eyes. "And what about Emily?" Maria asked. "How does she fit into this?" The question hit him deeper than he anticipated. "She's my anchor. Everything I want to do for these kids, I want her to be part of it. I want her to see that success isn't just about what you have, it's also about what you give." He searched her gaze, hoping for a glimmer of camaraderie, a sense of shared purpose. The fight within him was fierce, and he couldn't let it go unnoticed by those who mattered. "Let's say I'm willing to consider this," Maria finally replied, a hint of guarded optimism entering her voice. "Prove it.
Set up a meeting with the education board, present your idea, and you'll need genuine community backing. His heart soared with renewed determination. I can do that. I will do that. Yet, as excitement bubbled within him, doubt still lingered like a shadow. Would this new path lead to redemption, or would he once again stumble back into familiar patterns? The battle within him continued to rage, a storm of hope and fear. But one truth stood above the rest. This meeting with Maria had reignited a flicker of purpose, a reminder of what was at stake. As they left the cafe, he felt a profound sense of possibility lingering in the air. Yet, a lingering question gnawed at him. What repercussions awaited him if he succeeded? And more chillingly, what if he failed? The following day dawned with a sense of urgency that electrified the air around Jake. He had only hours to prepare 3 distinct yet interconnected components. His project proposal, a compelling narrative to engage the education board, and a strategy to rally community support. Each piece felt equally vital, yet he struggled with where to begin. He brewed a strong cup of coffee, letting its aroma fill the room, while he jotted down notes on his old leather notepad. Each scribble a step toward a future he desperately wanted. The calming presence of the brewing coffee was a welcome contrast to the chaos in his mind. Just yesterday, the thought of facing the education board felt like staring down a precipice. Now, it felt like the only path forward. As he recalled Maria's questions, he began to draft the proposal. He focused on specific programs he wanted to implement: mentorship pairings, workshops on emotional intelligence, funding for school supplies. Each brainwave illuminated the pages like flashlights in a dark corridor. But with every word, self-doubt crept in. Was he merely parading his wealth as a band-aid for deeper issues? What qualified him to shape children's lives when he had struggled for so long to shape his own? He snatched the notepad and crumpled the page, tossing it aside. The urge to retreat was strong, but something stubborn within him refused to yield. This wasn't merely about presenting a plan. It was about proving to himself and to Emily that he could be better. Time passed quickly as he shifted from the proposal to draft a narrative he hoped would resonate with the board. He needed to be authentic about his past failures, not just his aspirations. Perhaps it was the candid recounting of how neglecting his family had left him yearning for fulfillment that would earn their empathy. He closed his eyes, visualizing Emily's face. Her laughter echoed in his ears, anchoring him in purpose. After hours of painstaking work, Jake stood back, surveying the printed sheets spread across his cluttered dining table. It was more than a plan, it was a testament. Yet the cracks in his resolve still threatened to widen. What would it take to convince the skeptical eyes of the board? He picked up his phone, thumb hovering over Maria's number. Just then he hesitated. Would talking to her again be a sign of weakness or a strategic move? He resolved it was the latter. She was steeped in the realities of the community he aspired to impact. Just as he'd promised, he needed every advantage if this was to be more than an empty gesture. "Hey, Maria," he said when she picked up, the tension in his voice palpable. "I could use some feedback on my proposal. I want this to align with the community's needs, not just what I think they are." "Interesting," she responded, and he could sense her scrutiny through the phone. "But it's not just about the proposal. You need to invest time in understanding the people you want to help. Start by attending a community meeting. Spend time on the ground." "Right, a community meeting. I'll do that," he replied, the weight of her suggestion resonating with a seriousness he hadn't anticipated. The thought of immersing himself in discussions with parents and teachers filled him with a strange mixture of dread and excitement. They would see through his facade if he attempted to pitch his ideas from a pedestal. The realization washed over him. He would have to strip away the protective layers of wealth and status. "Jake," Maria's voice broke into his thoughts, "this is a two-way street. People need to see you care beyond the surface. It's going to be hard, but you have to be real. If you really want to change lives, yours must change first." Her words cut deeply, revealing the pathway he needed to walk but felt unprepared to embrace fully. Yet now, another part of him felt stimulated by the challenge. "I appreciate it, really, I do. I'll make myself available." As their conversation wrapped up, Jake's next steps felt more solidified. The depth of his mission was starting to surface, blending both personal and professional dimensions. He'd have to face his fears, the doubts, the judgments, and transform them into something actionable. Emerging from this vortex of internal conflict, Jake made a plan to attend that community meeting. Yet, as he prepared to take a step closer to his goal, an unsettling thought took root. What if, immersing himself in their world, uncovered truths about himself he wasn't
ready to confront? He stared at the blank page in front of him, realizing he had not just a program to pitch, but a profound personal journey ahead, filled with unimaginable challenges. And deep down, he couldn't shake how close he was to the precipice of both triumph and turmoil. What latent fears would surface as he stepped, for the first time, into the lives of those he wished to help? Jake felt the familiar jittering in his stomach as he parked his car outside the community center. It was so alien to him, this feeling of vulnerability, but he recognized it as necessary. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself as he scanned the modest building. Flaking paint and brightly colored murals told a story of resilience. He had always been a patron of polished aesthetics, designing spaces that captivated rather than connected. It was time to learn the difference. As he entered, the sound of children's laughter cut through the evening air, wrapping around him like a living testament to the joy he wanted to promote in their lives. Chairs were arranged in circles, a humble setup that felt a world apart from his boardroom meetings. He hesitated. The threshold between him and this new world felt like a chasm, but he stepped through, driven by a force he could barely identify. "Jake!" A voice broke through his anxious thoughts. Maria waved him over. Her presence felt like a lifeline, and he moved toward her, drawn by the warmth in her eyes. "Glad you came. They're just about to get started." He followed her to a group of parents seated in a circle, their faces a mix of curiosity and cautious acceptance. Each one carried stories etched into their features, a crumpled frown here, a hopeful smile there. They were dedicated, no doubt, and he felt his heart race, suddenly aware that sharing his intentions with this group was not merely about presenting ideas, it was about exposing himself to scrutiny. "Can you introduce yourself?" Maria nudged him gently, and he nodded, suddenly under the spotlight. "I'm Jake," he began, choosing his words with care. He sensed the gathering silence, the weight of expectation, and felt the pressure of his past pushing at the edges of his consciousness. "I'm here to learn. I want to understand what you and your children need." A murmur rippled through the group, some nodding while others appeared skeptical. He could feel their probing gazes examining the integrity behind his polished exterior, their judgment palpable. Beneath their scrutiny, a layer of resolve hardened within him. "Are you one of those rich guys wanting to save us?" a woman with bright red lipstick and tired eyes asked, her tone challenging. His gut twisted. The truth of her words was a bitter pill he had to swallow. "I don't want to save anyone," he answered honestly, finding strength in the rawness of vulnerability. "I want to help where I can, but I can only do that if I understand your lives." His forthrightness hung in the air, a pendulum swinging between sincerity and skepticism. He anticipated the dismissal or critique that might follow, but instead the room shifted. If they were surprised by his honesty, they softened just a touch. One father spoke up, circling back to the concerns he'd brought. "Our kids need more than just supplies or programs. They need someone who understands the struggles we face every day. Can you really do that?"
Jake realized then that their skepticism had roots deeper than mere distrust. Their stories, tethered to sorrow and struggles, were layered and complex, much more than the initiatives he'd initially considered. He took a step forward, leaning on his instinct to connect instead of convince. "I've made mistakes," he admitted, the words falling from his lips as if uncoiling a tightly held truth. "I've failed at being there for my own family. I want to change that." He paused, the weight of his confession laying bare the cracks in his past. "If you allow me to learn from you, I'd be honored." In that moment of raw honesty, he saw a flicker of something shift in their expressions. Curiosity, interest, maybe even hope. He had breached a barrier, the facade cracked, revealing a glimpse of his own humanity. As the meeting continued, Jake asked questions and listened intently, absorbing the responses. The more he learned about their daily battles and aspirations, the more he recognized the shared humanity that united them. Beneath their circumstances, he felt a deep current of resilience that resonated within him. It nourished a seed of purpose he hadn't known existed. Leaving the community center that night, he felt unsteady yet invigorated. A quiet determination started to shape the contours of his ambitions, realizing they were not only about children, but also about healing the chasms within himself. However, a lingering fear remained. How far was he willing to go to strip away his past pretenses? His heart raced at the thought. Would they accept his commitment once they knew the depth of his journey? Standing at the threshold of this new path, the moment was structured yet uncertain, and an unsettling question coursed through him. Would the truth he sought set him free, or push him further from the man he wished to become? His next steps loomed before him, daunting yet undeniably promising. As days turned into weeks, Jake found himself tangled in a transformative rhythm. He stepped outside his comfort zone with a newfound frequency, pushing against the boundaries he'd erected around himself. Yet, with every visit to the community center, a nagging sense of inadequacy tugged at his mind. Did he truly have the capacity to contribute anything meaningful? Or was he merely a spectator, seeking validation while wearing the facade of a would-be savior? His quest for connection began manifesting in small, practical ways. He developed relationships with individual parents, learning about their lives while cautiously sharing parts of his own. It was during one of these exchanges with a father named Miguel that a realization struck like a bolt of clarity. Miguel recounted the importance of resilience in a struggling household, highlighting the strength required merely to survive each day. Jake began to see beyond the stark economic differences. He saw a mirror reflecting his own battles, a fierce fight against an invisible enemy of expectation. But even amid this growing connection, shadows lingered. Each story Miguel shared had an edge that cut deeply into Jake. He hadn't just been absent from his daughter's life. He had shielded himself from vulnerability, unwittingly neglecting the same life lessons these parents lived daily. Their resilience contrasted sharply with his privileged self-doubt, igniting a wave of discontent within him. Was his pursuit of transformation just an escape from the reality of his failures? Determined not to merely float in agony, Jake proposed a workshop series tailored to building resilience among the children. It was a way to repurpose his strengths. After careful planning, he organized a session on constructive coping mechanisms, aimed at constructive self-expression through art. Art had always served as an escape for him. Perhaps it could foster authenticity in these communities. On the day of the first workshop, as he prepared the supplies, anxiety coursed through him. The children began filtering in, their excited chatter a reminder of the energy he sought to harness. But he quickly noticed the skepticism in their eyes, mirroring the concerns of their parents. Could they trust a man so steeped in privilege with their creative spirits? As he welcomed them, Jake chose to forego the polished tone that came naturally to him, and instead opted for simplicity. He knelt to their level, using humor to break the ice. Just a few moments into the session, his heart swelled as he watched reluctant faces soften. It felt freeing to engage with them, not as an authoritative figure, but as a fellow learner, exploring the depths of creativity together. "I don't know much about this either," he confessed, gesturing toward the drawing supplies strewn across the tables. "Let's figure it out as we go." The warmth that followed was electrifying. For the first time, he felt a true, organic connection unfold. Laughter echoed, colors splashed across paper, and the children began to share bits of their lives as they drew. In their stories lay the rawness he had long avoided, but instead of feeling shame, he discovered empathy, the kind that sprouted from shared vulnerability. Reflecting again on his interactions with Miguel and the others, Jake felt an invisible thread weave through his own heart, binding him closer not just to these families, but also to a journey of self-discovery that was as profound as it was terrifying. He began to confront the idea that perhaps the strength Miguel exuded didn't just firmly reside in avoiding defeat, but in the honesty of embracing imperfections. Through the laughter and art, is it empathy he was discovering, or was it a burgeoning strength?
Each day spent in this space mirrored back another facet of his own vulnerabilities, a mirror reflecting the depths through which he needed to grow. Yet, with every constructive realization, new doubts flickered at the edges of his consciousness. Would this initiation into vulnerability truly lead to growth and healing? Or had he simply exchanged one mask for another, unaware that the real struggle lay ahead? Standing in the light of their collective creativity, Jake felt ready to take on the challenge awaiting him, but the memory of his past loomed still, lurking like an apparition. If transformation truly beckoned, would he have the courage to confront those shadows? The answer seemed tantalizingly close, just out of reach, daring him to grasp it fully. Jake stood on the precipice of a significant decision, realizing that the real journey ahead wasn't just about helping others, but confronting the contradictions buried within himself. How far down that rabbit hole was he willing to plunge to unearth the truth? Jake awoke the next morning with a heaviness that had replaced the buoyant hope from his recent workshop. The image of brightly colored drawings and enthusiastic faces lingered, but so did the biting thoughts that gnawed at him through the night. Did he really make an impact, or was it a fleeting distraction, a temporary veil over the chasm he felt inside? He decided to return to the library, seeking solace among the books that had always been his refuge. There, amidst the hushed whispers of knowledge and experience, he lost himself in the pages of works on psychology, creativity, and resilience. The more he read, the more he grappled with the fragments of his life he had neglected. Each chapter unraveled layers of his identity, illuminating the contrasts that had propelled him toward this newfound path. Late into the afternoon, a particular passage caught his eye. It emphasized the importance of facing one's fears directly rather than avoiding them, a lesson he had already tasted from the stories shared by Miguel and the children. It dawned on him that his contributions were as much about giving as they were about receiving. Their resilience mirrored his facade of strength, revealing that the act of sharing was twofold. He couldn't impart wisdom without first embracing his own failures he often deluded himself into thinking he had overcome. With renewed determination, Jake returned to the community space the next day. This time, he focused on sharing more than just workshops. He began to initiate conversations with the parents too, learning from their experiences while revealing parts of his own past. In doing so, he carved a space where vulnerability could brew, making room for further connections. Over coffee and snippets of their lives, he started to bridge the gap not only between himself and the families, but also between his ideal self and the person he truly was. Yet the war within him raged on. Confronting his failings felt like stripping away protective layers, leaving him exposed. The fragility he sensed in himself was mirrored by a growing urgency to shed the remnants of his previous life, his wealth, comfort, and past decisions that no longer served him. Each interaction pulled Jake deeper into wrestling with demons that had long haunted him,
including the unresolved inadequacy about his absence in his daughter's life. One afternoon, facing a blank canvas, Jake launched a new exercise for the children. It involved self-portraits, a direct encounter with perception and identity. As they immersed themselves in their creations, the room grew silent with concentration. Watching them, Jake visualized his own portrait. How would he represent the man he had become, and what truths might it reveal? As he observed each child's artistic choices, he was struck by their raw honesty, and it struck him. He had the tools, yet to uncover his own depth. With apparent ease, some filled their work with bright, hopeful colors, while others delicately sketched in sorrow's darker hues. Each artistic decision felt like an intrepid exploration of their own realities. In this moment, he realized he could no longer merely facilitate their journeys. He had to embark on his own, even if it meant grappling with discomfort. Art had opened a door to emotional expression, but the shadows of his past beckoned him, an invitation and a challenge. Would he dare to paint the mess and chaos engraved in his life? As weeks trailed on, a decision stewed beneath Jake's surface, a need to confront his daughter. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. The specter of their unspoken relationship loomed larger than ever. He had to take that plunge. Would she even want to see him? Standing in front of his easel one afternoon, he mulled over the juxtaposition of his life today and what it had been 2 decades prior. It was at that moment, amidst splashes of paint representing both his chaos and aspiration, that he committed to seeking out his daughter. He could no longer hide behind his fears. The time had come to face everything he had avoided for so long. But as he prepared to take that leap, a sudden thought gripped him. What if she rejected the connection he sought? The tremors of self-doubt cascaded anew, reminding him how many chances he had let slip away. Would she see him as a stranger, or would there still be an inch of bond waiting to be rediscovered? He stood at the precipice of a choice that felt monumental, aware that not every shadow could be vanquished with paint or words. The deeper he delved into this journey, the more uncertain he felt, yet the pull to reconnect with his daughter grew stronger. The next step was before him, but would he have the courage to take it? Jake stood before the mirror, the sunlight filtering through the curtains, casting a glow that illuminated the contours of his face. Today marked the day he would see Emily again. Despite all the preparedness he
had undergone, a whirlpool of anxiety coiled within him. He could still vividly recall the last conversation they had. The words exchanged had laid bare the chasms carved by years of neglect. But he had changed. Each small step into the community, every workshop he held, all forged a new sense of responsibility within him. He had come to understand that his journey wasn't merely about assisting others. It was his path to redemption through accountability. And in seeking to uplift those around him, he found himself once more. Arriving at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, he scanned the room for Emily. His heart raced when he spotted her, seated alone, her expression unreadable. Was it skepticism, hope, or resentment? He took a deep breath and stepped forward, each stride feeling imbued with purpose, though tinged with uncertainty. "Hi, Dad," she greeted, her tone tentative yet edged with warmth. The words felt like a pebble cast into the depths of his heart, sending ripples of anticipation and dread racing through him. "Hi, Emily. Thanks for meeting me," he replied, settling into the chair across from her, the weight of all those unshared moments palpable in the air. The initial silence, a void filled with the gravity of past interactions, hung heavily before he finally broke it. "I've been reevaluating things, Emily. The way I've lived, the choices I've made, they haven't been right. I want you to know I understand how I hurt you." Her gaze held him captive. "It took you long enough, Dad," she said evenly, the warmth giving way to a defensive edge. "I deserve that," he conceded, feeling the quiver of vulnerability seep into his words. "But I want to be better, not just for you or for your mother or anyone else. I want to be better for me."
I want to be a father you can depend on." Emily's expression shifted, brimming with both fear and curiosity. "And how do I know that this is not just another phase? How can I trust you again?" Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself against the uncertainty woven into her words. "I know I've broken trust, so I need to earn it back, one day at a time." With that acknowledgement, he shared with her the growth he had experienced. He revealed his efforts within the community, how he had started workshops that aimed not only to educate, but to truly connect. He spoke with passion about the importance of resilience and what it meant to him personally. It resonated deeply, echoing the feelings of emptiness he had long faced. "What's it like in there?" Emily asked, curiosity edging into her tone. "The kids are amazing. They've shown me strength that I forgot was possible. But it goes deeper than that. Each story they share brings me closer to the man I want to be." Jake saw a flicker of real interest in Emily's eyes, a spark igniting that he hoped could expand into understanding. "I want to involve you in this
journey, Emily. I want to show you that my ambition can now intertwine with purpose, not just profit. You mean the world to me, and reconnecting with you is part of where I need to start." Her brows knitted together, pondering what lay before her. "That's a lot to ask, you know? I don't know if I can just forget." "And you shouldn't have to," he replied softly. "The goal isn't to erase the past, but to work towards something meaningful together." As they exchanged a steady gaze, Jake felt the walls they'd both erected begin to crack. He held on to that moment, allowing a glimmer of hope to permeate through the weight of their conversation. "Let's create a project together, something that reflects our journey and the change we want to embody." Emily's lips curled slightly, hope mingling with her trepidation. "What kind of project?" "Perhaps a community event that brings together art and education, drawing on both of our strengths. We could inspire young people just like those kids." His enthusiasm ignited, fueled by a sense of purpose greater than himself. "I'd like that," she admitted cautiously, a slight smile emerging. "But I want to be part of the decision-making, not just your daughter, but your partner." "Absolutely," he promised, each word solidifying the integrity of this renewed relationship. And as they brainstormed the possibilities, ideas began to flow freely. Laughter punctuated the conversation, their bond rekindling a sense of trust that had been dormant for too long. At that moment, Jake felt a profound clarity wash over him. This connection he was slowly reclaiming wasn't just for himself. It was about shared dreams and mutual respect. He leaned across the table, locking eyes with her. "I'm ready to be the father you deserve, a true partner in this life." As they continued their conversation, the atmosphere shifted from uncertainty to anticipation, and Jake felt emboldened by the palpable change. He recognized the journey ahead would still require work, but they had agreed to embark on it together, united. He, a father seeking redemption, and she, a daughter willing to believe in him again. Jake walked away from that cafe with a newfound sense of purpose, not just in his endeavors within the community, but in fulfilling the role of a loving father. It wasn't just the steps he was taking, it was the life he was building, a future intertwined with hope, responsibility, and above all, connection. This was his moment. He felt validated, anchored in the realization that personal fulfillment is about stepping into the light of authenticity, ready to confront the past while boldly carving a new path forward. There was no time to waste in sharing this journey with others, and with that electrifying thought, he knew exactly how to move ahead. Now it was time for him to act. He needed to bring others in, showing them how to find their path to transformation, just as he had. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.